I'm quite pleased you came for tea today. Yes, yes. I have been meaning to talk to you about something actually. I wanted to talk about love. Not about me, of course. About Jane and Mr. Bingley. Well, everyone talks about it. She's my sister. Of course, I would know what is going on. What do you mean I like Mr. Darcy? I do not. I do not care for him. I don't. Stop it, I don't. Well, if you must know, he said of me I was tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt him. That he was in no humour at present to give consequence to young ladies who are slighted by other men. How do I know he said that? Well, if you must know, though, that is not the conversation I was hoping to have with you today. A few weeks ago, I was, well, at a ball where I met him for the first time, and at some point during the night, I had been obliged by the scarcity of gentlemen to sit down for 2 dances, and while I was sitting, Mr. Darcy was standing near enough for me to hear his conversation with Mr. Bingley. After they walked off, I must admit I remained with no cordial feelings for the gentleman. Well, what he said was not really nice, was it? Let me sip on my tea. And yes, I did tell the story of Mr. Darcy bad-mouthing me. However, I only told it to my friends with great spirit, for I have a playful disposition which delights in anything ridiculous. Anyway, I wanted to talk about something else. I wanted to talk about, this thing that is going on between Mr. Bingley and my sister. You see, Mr. Bingley is absolutely nothing like Mr. Darcy. Well, Mr. Bingley likes my sister, of course, but some say that he would never do more than like her. If she does not help him on, that is. Yes. Well, the matter, you see, is that she does not help him on as much as her nature allows, and if Mr. Bingley does not perceive her regard for him, he must be a simpleton. You know my thoughts on the matter. If a woman is partial to a man and does not endeavour to conceal it, well, he must discover it. Alas, though Jane and Mr. Bingley meet tolerably often, it is never for more than a couple of hours, and they always see each other in large mixed parties. So my friend Charlotte, Charlotte, yes, she said that Jane should make sure she is secure of Mr. Bingley. There would be more leisure for falling in love as much as she chooses once they are married. Charlotte, she's a delight. I mean, I quite agree with her when nothing is in question but the desire of being married and the determination to get a rich husband. Any husband, really. But these are not Jane's feeling. No. No, no, far from it. Well, no. Jane does not act by design. I mean, she cannot even be certain of the degree of her own affection for the man. She has known him for what? Maybe a fortnight? She danced 4 dances with him at Meriton. She saw him once at his own house, and has since then dined with him in company 4 times. Well, that's what I'm saying. This is not quite enough to make, her understand his character. Well, it's not enough for her to be certain of her regard for him, really. It's quite serious business we're talking about. We're talking about marriage. Spending your entire life with one man, waking up to the same face every morning until the sweet release of death. Well, to be honest, I've been quite taken with the idea of Mr. Bingley marrying my sister. So all I do now is observing Mr. Bingley's attentions to my sister. Who cares about Mr. Darcy? Not me. Would you quit mentioning him? No. He does not like me. He looked at me with no admiration at the ball. When we met next, he looked at me only to criticize. I even heard he made it clear to all his relatives and friends I hardly had a good feature in my face. Besides, my manners are apparently not those of the fashionable word. To put it simply, Mr. Darcy is, well, the man who makes himself agreeable nowhere. I know I probably sound bitter, but I mean, who wouldn't be? And I remember that other night at Sir Lucas Williams' sort of a large party where we were all assembled. My friend Charlotte, yes, you know my friend Charlotte, she wanted me to play and sing before everybody. It was quite embarrassing because, well, as you know, I'm not too good at it. But I did it anyway, and surprisingly it was rather pleasing, though by no means capital. After a song or two, my sister Mary eagerly succeeded at the instrument. You see, she's always impatient to display her skills, her numerous skills. Yeah, she practices very hard at home. Mama calls her plain, actually, and says that's why she tries to excel at so many things. But I find that judgment quite hard. I think that Mary is so pleasant to the eye. But that is not our subject. Yes, after I was done playing and embarrassing myself, quite a bit really, Sir William came over and asked Mr. Darcy to dance with me. You can imagine how embarrassing that was, considering he did say I was barely tolerable. Imagine the scene. Sir William said, "My dear Miss..." Well, that's not his voice. It's something more like, "My dear Miss Eliza, why are you not dancing? Mr. Darcy, you must allow me to present this young lady to you as a very desirable partner. You cannot refuse to dance, I'm sure, when so much beauty is before you." He took my hand and tried to give it to Mr. Darcy, who evidently was not interested either. So I drew back instantly and said, "Indeed, sir, I have not the least intention of dancing. I entreat you not to suppose that I move this way in order to beg for a partner." And, after that, Mr. Darcy requested to, be allowed the honour of my company. But in vain, in vain. Well, I had not forgotten what he had said the other night at the ball, that I was barely tolerable, not handsome enough to tempt him, that my sister Jane was the only handsome woman in the room. Sir William said I excelled so much at dancing that it was cruel to deny Mr. Darcy the happiness of seeing me dance with him, but I did not care, nor did I flinch. But now, let us go back to the matter that interests us the most. Mr. Bingley and Jane. Who cares for Mr. Darcy anyway? Certainly not me. Moving on, the other day my mother had the devious idea to send my sister to Mr. Bingley on horseback, knowing it was going to rain that day. Yes, thus ensuring her staying all night there, because surely they would never ask her to go back home without a carriage in horrible weather. So of course it rained, and the next morning a note was brought to me. It was Jane telling me she was feeling unwell. How terrible. I know. My mother is, eager to marry us off. Papa was rather upset by the news. He actually said something that was quite funny. He said that if Jane should die, it would be a comfort knowing it was all in pursuit of Mr. Bingley and under my mother's orders. Anyway, I was actually really anxious about Jane being sick, so I decided to go to Netherfield, which is where Mr. Bingley resides. I went myself to see if she was all right. It's the sisterly thing to do. Yes. No, it was not to see Mr. Darcy. I mean, I knew that Mr. Darcy was staying there, but it was absolutely not to see Mr. Darcy. It was because I was concerned for my sister Jane, who was unwell. Anyway, I went there by foot. It's only 3 miles, and the distance is nothing when one has a purpose. Yes, I had a motive. I wanted to see my sister, not Mr. Darcy. Please stop at once. So, I walked for miles and miles, covered in mud, and I finally got there. I was shown into the breakfast parlour, and my appearance created a great deal of surprise. You see, I had walked in such dirty weather, and by myself. I am quite sure everyone despised me when they took a look at me. Yes, Caroline Bingley was there, Mr. Bingley's sister. She looked at me with such disdain, and she was completely shocked, utterly shocked. She said, "Oh my God, have you seen her dress? 6 inches deep in mud. She looks positively medieval. To walk alone for 3 miles, alone, what could she mean by it? It seems to me to show an abominable sort of conceited independence, a most country town indifference for decorum. She is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous." Oh, trust me, the condescendence was absolutely palpable. Caroline Bingley, in all her We then had a very enlightening conversation about what it means to be an accomplished woman. Yes, Miss Bingley was telling us that no one can be really esteemed accomplished who does not greatly surpass what is usually met with. A woman must have a thorough knowledge of music, singing, drawing, dancing, and the modern languages to deserve the word. And besides all this, she must possess a certain something in her air and her manner of walking, her address and expression, or the word would be half deserved. And then Mr. Darcy, because of course he was here, since you insist on talking about him, Mr. Darcy added that all this she must possess, and to all this she must yet add something more substantial in the improvement of her mind by extensive reading. I'm sorry, but this is laughable. I know, that is precisely what I mean. I told them I never saw such woman, such capacity and taste and application and elegance as described united. But let us quit talking about Mr. Darcy. Who cares about Mr. Darcy? Certainly not me. And who cares about Caroline Bingley anyway? She's probably redecorating her ballroom in the French style. I can already hear her complaining that it's unpatriotic. She's a character, isn't she? Anyway, I think I have proven to you I have no affection for Mr. Darcy whatsoever. And you know what? To hell with accomplished women.